Rugby Pod.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rugby Pod, where we'll be diving into a monster weekend of semi-finals action. Blood was spilt, sweat and tears everywhere, and we'll be breaking it all down, won't we, James?
That's right, Andrew. We also need to chat about, wait for it, the saviour of rugby union. We've heard it all before, but this time they claim to mean business. There's another league launching. It's called a franchise. It's going global, worldwide, apparently. So we're going to unpack that and give our opinions on the news that came out last week.
Stick it in the bin.
So negative, Andrew, straight from the off. We're going to unpack the bin. That's what we're going to do on this show. You can't just say put it in the bin. We're going to look through the bin and see what dirty nappies are in there because someone's eating them.
There we go. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you subscribed on Spotify.
Quiet weekend, lads. Not a lot of interaction. There's been a bit going out actually on the new WhatsApp chat, which I can't seem to get working. I'm sending voice notes, I'm sending pictures and videos, but they don't seem to be being uploaded, Rob, onto the new Rugby Pod WhatsApp chat.
That's because we have to filter what you put on these WhatsApp groups.
Yes.
And you have a sick mind, James Hamilton, don't you?
No, I don't have a sick mind. I have an honest mind. I just think
true.
I know what the masses want. So, but it's been quiet, Andrew. I've not really heard of you this weekend. I was trying to ring you on Saturday, and he didn't have his phone because he was watching the rugby a little bit later, and he knows that if he answers to me, I'll be like, "What about Leicester?"
I did apologise to you, James, over WhatsApp because you were like, "What's up? You're quiet." Basically, what's up is I was absolutely knackered. So I drove up on Friday up to your neck of the woods, Rob. As you know.
Oh, yeah?
And my neck of the woods, north.
Well, you're Scotland, James. I would fly to see you. But getting to Middlesbrough...
You never have.
That's true, actually. I have. I've come for live shows. I was at Gisborough Rugby Club, which is a great rugby club. So I'm driving up and I'm looking at the map.
Shit all.
Mate, hold on, Rob. We'll rewind, actually. Because as I'm driving up, I'm messaging Rob going... I pulled over, obviously, safely in the car to message Rob at the service station.
Oh, yeah, of course you did.
Yeah. And I said, mate, I'm up near your neck of the woods in Gisborough. Rob's response was, oh, that's a bit posh. Like that. But I did 5.5, or about 5 hour drive on the way up to Gisborough on Friday. So there was a lot of chocolate hobnobs being digested, James, on the way up with Coke Zeros. Did their dinner and then drove home as well.
But just on that, right, so people might think he's joking about the hobnobs and the Coke Zero, whatever it is. I've been in the luxury car and there's a couple of different buttons. Once you work out which button it is to open the top glove compartment, there is hobnobs, there's sweets, there's vapes, there's toilet roll, you name it, it is all in the glove compartment.
There's no toilet roll, there's baby wipes, James. There's baby wipes.
Whatever
no
it is, baby
roll.
wipes, same thing. They work. Whatever it is, they work for a courtesy as you're driving. So that's the good thing actually about baby wipes, isn't it? You can actually drive and utilise that because it's got a bit of moisture on it. Anyway, the hobnobs are unbelievable. And I said to Andrew when we were driving, where did we go in the car? We went to Plymouth.
Cardiff.
We've been
where else
to
we've been?
yeah, everywhere. There's a lot of miles going on there anyway. They're getting wound back, but it's fine. We're on the hobnobs. I've never seen whatever you call it, treats, luxury.
It's for the kids. It's for the kids, mate. For the kids.
Whatever it is. A glutton. Is that what they call it?
Gluttony or gluten? Which one?
Gluttony.
But in other news, it is Will Muir's rugby club, Gisborough Rugby Club, great rugby club. So a massive shout out to them all. His brother plays in the first team, but it's where Will Muir grew up playing. He used to be a fly half, apparently, Will Muir, the horse.
Imagine him playing 10. He's an horrible bit of kit to tackle, isn't he? And I say that with all due respect. Yeah. I mean, I'm watching him at the weekend and we've had a few players like that, just horrible to like train. I don't know what he's like to train against, but watching lads play against him because he's rangy, right? But
bony, but I reckon bony as well.
Oh, yeah. We had a lad, right? Random as anything. A guy called Shane Monaghan at Gloucester.
Yeah, I remember Monaghan.
Exactly the same. Big shout out to Shane as well. We met him in the streets of Dublin when he was doing the Labour podcast, weren't he? On us in the street. Horrible bit of kit, the same as Will Muir. Like, you get lads like that where they look like they're not going to be that good. I say that with all due respect because he doesn't look like Joe Thocker the singer, does he? And again at the weekend. Let's get straight into it. What about the physicality of that game? Let's just go straight into it. I know the build-up was a little bit kind of gnarly. We spoke about it last week, a bit niggly with some of the comments you read out on the pod around Pat Lam. Saw Genji's interview as well at the Premiership Awards that we didn't get invited to, doing his interviews and doing the rounds on there. So it was primed really for a West Country derby, and my goodness me, it delivered, didn't it?
It did. And I love the build-up, right? We need narratives, we need talking points. And, credit to Pat Lam and Genji, and everyone goes, keep your powder dry. Don't say anything to rile up the opposition. But sometimes you need to roll yourself up. And the reality of it is with Genji, who's a proper Bristolian, isn't he? And, they've come out and said, we've been brought up to hate Bath. You could see the energy, the passion, and everything that went with it. The physicality was off the charts. I really enjoyed the build-up. And some people have said, Pat Lam, Genji, you shouldn't have said what you said. But that's entirely up to them, how they use those kind of little snippets themselves to get themselves rolled up. And it was working. Like you saw even Genji's round with fans on the way out, which, I'm sure the fans have said something to him to get him to nibble a little bit. I think there was a little bit as he came in from the warm-up as well. But as they were coming out, you could see, and you can see what it means to him, right? And he went out there and played, physically, he got on the ref's nerves a little bit. But some players have to, and Jim, you were similar, some players have to get themselves to a position where, mentally and physically and emotionally, they're on the edge, right? And however you get that personally is a big thing. And obviously Genji, has fueled himself with, his feelings around Bath and how he realistically feels about the fixture, because historically it's a massive fixture, isn't it? And it was a belting semi-final. Bristol chucked the kitchen sink at them in that first half. The tries, Ravovo sets up the one from his own 5 metre line, which ironically Will Muir misses the tackle, a little bit of inexperience there. And at half time, Bristol would probably look at it and go, do you know what? We should be more ahead than we were. They had more opportunities in that first half. Their line out was a bit ropey at times, but some of the hits, and I'm watching it going, that's a million miles away from what me and you played, Jim, in terms of the physicality across the board, the hits, the handling, just the pure power that was being shown and the passion from both teams and what it meant to them. And it was a banging first half, wasn't it? And then Johan van Graan does his bit at half time and Bath come out and absolutely turned the screw in the start of that second half and dominated the game.
Yeah, 4 unanswered tries after the restart. But I think losing Harry Randall was big for them. But who was I watching with? I was watching with a mate and we were talking. Oh, no, I was travelling and I was texting a mate actually who was a Bath fan, who was a Finn Russell fan. And he was just texting as a casual fan. Big shout out to Craig from Revere. And he was saying, like, what a game. And I said, Bath will win this. And that is with respect to Bristol's, because you cannot play how Bristol played in the first half for 80 minutes. You just can't. You can't do it. And the emotion and everything with Genji in the lead up and the physicality, and I suppose Bath's defence as well in the first half where they were holding Bristol up over the line. They fired every shot that they had. Yeah. Right? And big shout out to Bristol, because I'm not even going to say about the two teams on paper, because the quality of the bench that Bath brought on, but to stick in the game how they did, I thought it was a brilliant semi-final. And you mentioned it there, the physicality, and we've seen the pictures of Tom Dunn doing the round.
Oh, my
It's
face.
actually it's crazy to think that that's an 8-day turnaround from playing another game, which is going to be an absolute war against Leicester. And the physicality in that game as well, we'll get onto it. The level of rugby this weekend in the Premiership was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. It was exceptional. The atmosphere, the energy, the build-up. We'll get on to the stuff where we're going to talk about this kind of franchise and the state of the game, which we have to talk about and we touch on throughout the season, right? You watch that game at Bath on Friday night, West Country derby, the owners constantly in shot on the screen as well. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a level up of a semi-final that I've seen as well. And that's saying so, because the semi-finals have been brilliant in the Prem and the URC, but the Premiership specifically on this. And the athletes and the jeopardy, and you talk about putting your bodies on the line. And we were speaking about it 2 years ago, weren't we, at the World Cup in France, being there at the quarterfinals and the semi and the final. What these players are putting their bodies through, and the collisions on the line and the physicality, because there's nothing in it, right? The coaches are well aligned, the strategy, they both have their own strategy. Then you've got freak athletes like Ravovo, like we saw, Bill Matter, Genja. Look, the list is endless, of the stuff that they were doing. We spoke about Will Moore, Joe Thokonasiga. They're running onto the ball at lightning speed, and they're 18, 19 stone, some of them, and they are getting monster. Ted Hill covering back for some of his tackles.
How good was he?
It was unbelievable, because it's a game of rugby, right?
Yeah.
So it's sport. But you're looking at what these players, what these lads, what these men, these young men are putting their bodies through for the cause, for their team. A lot of that is the build-up for the narrative. A lot of it is for the city. And I want to swear here, but I'm not, because I've been told I can't swear as much by producer Rob, even though he swears all the time, but not on the podcast. It was savage. It really was. And what a fantastic game. And Bristol can hold their heads up high and go back, down, across, up. I don't know where Bristol is compared to Bath. I know it's close. Because they fired their shot in that game.
Yeah, it did. And looking at the game, across all semi-finals, and we'll break them down individually, but it was just the discipline. And I don't mean giving penalties away. I mean the discipline of how you play. So that there was a few off bits from Bristol, a couple of line-outs went awry when they were in the 22. The kick battle, the kicking exchange and the high ball battle was key for Bath. Finn Russell kind of just tactically dominated the game, and especially in that second half, pulling the strings. And they were just on point.
Apart from his box kick.
Yeah, sod the box kick.
At least he didn't give a shit.
No, at least he smiled, right? Yeah.
But
it was, the physicality. And I'm Guy Pepper was man of the match. Have Bath paid for Newcastle's fee yet, Rob? Can you confirm that for Guy Pepper? Is that one that Steve Diamond's still chasing, or?
No, it's still outstanding.
Okay, well,
yeah, Red Bull are sorting that last week when they're buying the club though.
But Pepper was phenomenal. He lived on the edge a bit, gave a couple of penalties away, but the turnovers he was getting at crucial times. But you mentioned him before, Jim, Ted Hill, just a freak athlete. He catches Ravovo, and I know Ravovo's made a break and stepped, and he looked like for all money he was scoring. But he turns on the gas to catch Ravovo, and I've heard out the Bath camp that Ted Hill was the fastest in the squad anyway, right? He's a freak athlete. Physically, the work rate he was getting through.
Who does he remind you of? One of the greatest players of all time.
Jerome Kano?
Little bit. I see a bit of Kieran Reid in him.
Kieran Reid. He's tough, I think.
Yeah. Big chin.
Maybe it's the chin. I do see a bit of Kieran Reid, but actually Jerome Kano's a good comparison.
Yeah. He was ridiculously good. And Bath, yes, they had a strong bench come on, but they were just more clinical, more efficient. The key components of their game, their set piece, the kicking game from Finn, the aerial battle, and it was kind of a theme throughout all four semi-finals this week. I think making less errors, the discipline of sticking to a way of playing a semi-final. And I know Bristol are a fabulous team, and you look at the try they scored in the first half that Ravovo starts off from his own try line. Not many teams can score that, but sometimes they've just got a temper. There was a bit in the first half where Bath actually end up getting a penalty. It's a scrum inside Bristol's own 22, and they try and play out the back, and Bath read it. They know what's coming, so go and fly up. Ajomo makes a great tackle. I think it was on Ravovo. They get the turnover, get a penalty, and it's just sometimes it's unnecessary in a semi-final. And I get it's your DNA, but I think Bath are defensively have the best stats in terms of conceding tries in the Prem, and offensively certainly have the best stats of scoring the most tries. So both sides of the ball, they're not just a team, and we've seen Bath evolve over the last couple of years with the Finn playing and the magic that they've got, the offloading game. But this year, everything's come together. Their set piece is bloody strong. The scrum, they bring on Dutoy as well. Line out was strong. Tom Dunn, the face of Bath Rugby. And I've got to tell a quick story about Tom Dunn. So I was commentating on the Challenge Cup final, pitch side. And I gave Tom Dunn a little bit of stick on here for being not the best looking. He came up to me with his face all screwed up. He's like, "Hey, I heard you called me ugly on the podcast." I said, yeah, but I backed down. I said, apologies, mate. I shouldn't have said it, but it's true.
I love how that's an Andy Good back down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just a man of my word. But I said, mate, I feel sorry. I'm sorry, mate. I shouldn't have said it, but it is true, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it is, and ran off laughing. So, but then you see his face absolutely battered after the game. And it means he's a proper Bath boy and he's been there for a long time. It means a hell of a lot to him. So they thoroughly deserved it and they got the nuts and bolts right. Like, look at Focken Singer. He hasn't played like that, and he's a wonderful player. We love him on the podcast in terms of what he can do, but consistently over the 80 minutes, he was on it. Like, there was some sort of mega bonus coming his way if he stayed on it for 80 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
He frustrates the life out of me.
Yeah, but not on Friday night he wouldn't have, because he was unbelievable. Sitting boys down, defensively on point. And Bath, to a man, every one of them was right at the top of their game. Physically, both sides of the ball, defensively and in attack, and they thoroughly deserved the win.
I do think that even though they were on the wrong end of this fixture, Bristol have been class this year. I think there's a lot to be said for like their identity and the way they play rugby. I think they kind of lost it a little bit, didn't they, last year? And they're trying to play a bit more of a structured game, but they seem to have refound that, don't they? The all-out attack.
Oh, points, they looked phenomenal. Some of the breaks, and we mentioned Revovo, but the ball at the line, AJ McGinty, how good was Bernard Janzi van Rensburg?
Yeah, wicked
He's
player.
so good.
I mean, not just in attack, in defence. Oh my word. You talk about putting your head in the spokes. Who did he put his head in the spokes? There was one, and I was like, oh my word. Body on the line.
He's got his lid in the spokes as well.
But that's what. But if you've got a lid that good, right, and you look that good, you're protecting it. You ain't wanting that being ripped off. And he was putting his head in the spokes as well. And look, Bill Matter as well. He gets all the kind of the headlines and stuff. But Fitzharding, I don't think I've mentioned his name more than once, maybe on the show.
Yeah.
And he's been brilliant for them. And Joe Batley and James Dunn as well. So yeah, I mean, Gabriel Ogre at
great
hooker.
player. Hope he goes on the tour with Curtis Langdon, actually, for the England tour.
The quality of English players. I know I mentioned a couple of Fijians and a South African name in there, but really, really good. And AJ McGinty, is he at Bristol next year still? Or
He is.
He leaving?
No,
I
think he's still there.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay,
but they've also
he's massive
signed,
for them.
Like, they've also signed Tom Jordan, haven't they? Which is a wicked signing.
Yes, of course, yes.
But he can play 12. So they're only going to get better again next year, I think. And there is a few leaving, but their DNA is special in it, how they play. I just wish sometimes they'd temper it with you don't have to play that the whole time. And knockout rugby is different, isn't it?
Yeah. There you go, mate. So if you were to say one thing, if you're a casual fan, you're probably supporting Bristol with the way that they play. You cannot love what they do. It's high skill, high energy, out of your seats, exciting. But that's not going to win you Prems, clearly, or semi-finals. And I mentioned like losing Harry Randall, who's been brilliant for them, was a turning point in the game. But you need to have the ability to be able to kick as a balls and have that boring bit, like you mentioned the other semi-final, like we mentioned that Bath have got with Ben Spencer and the kicking game that they've got. And people don't like it, but that's how World Cups are won. That's how Champions Cups, the aerial ability, the crumbs, the 50-50s, the boring parts of the game. And Pat Lam will know that now. Like that's going to be the big thing for Bristol and their evolution going forward. Probably need a little bit of, a little bit more game control. And Tom Jordan doesn't give you that because he's a worldie. The way that he does it. So I've not seen enough of their roster that's got coming in, but quality team to watch, and fair play to them.
Should we have a look at the other semi then?
Yes, the mighty Leicester Tigers against the mighty Sale Sharks at Mattioli Woods, Welford Road. And do you know what? Having watched Friday night's game and watching how physical that was, and what an epic battle it was, like. And I'll say this quickly about the Prem. The Prem has been a little bit underwhelming at times over the last sort of 6 weeks or whatever. Bitty here, a game here. We kind of knew what the top four was going to be. There's no jeopardy on relegation, all that stuff. But in terms of the two semi-finals, for very different reasons, they were epic encounters. And, we'll get onto the URC semi-finals in a bit as well. I actually thought the Premiership semi-finals were a massive step up compared to the URC semis in terms of quality and jeopardy and, how physical it was and how, enthralling their games were. And that Leicester Sale game was as enthralling as the Friday night game, but for different reasons, because it was two old school, proper, hard-nosed teams, like the DNA of Leicester, the physicality, the set piece and all that stuff, and Sale with the physicality and their DNA led by Alex Sanderson and a load of South Africans, a load of English players, the Curry twins, how physical they are and everything that goes with it. It was, again, mouthwatering for different reasons. The physicality, again, I'm looking at it going, where are these boys banging from? Like everyone across the field. And how long can you bang that long for? How long can you keep defending, sitting boys down, both sides of the ball? And I was out Saturday, so I watched the game a bit later on. Hence I was off my phone, James, and very quiet, so apologies. But it was just, I was drooling at the semi-final at how physical it was and what both teams brought to the party. But again, came down to discipline of how you play, little errors here or there. And it was the finest of margins. Like the Leicester set piece was dominant. Apoko Fajor had a bit of a tough time, didn't he? At scrum time. Like the old school front row of Nicky Smith, Julian Montoya and Joe Hayes. They're not glory players. They're not footwork. They're not high skilled. They're grafters that can scrum and maul you to the cowsheds and back and just look hard and be hard. And they won that battle, didn't they? Again, the aerial kicking battle was Freddie Stewart. How many times can one man catch it so far above his head that well?
There's super skills, then there's that.
Yeah.
If you speak to anyone, as you know, that's one of the hardest skills in rugby to do, and he's the best in the business. And that's why, for me, if you're British and Irish Lions and you're thinking about wanting to play a certain way and you're bringing someone like an Elliot Daly as a specialist in long field kicking, you can't, I don't know what, they must be looking at that thinking, hang on, we might need to take this kid.
Yeah,
I don't know whether that's going to. I've got a sneaky feeling that might happen with a couple of players actually.
Well, actually, do you know what with Freddie? So Hugo Keenan's injured at the minute, isn't he? Blair Kinghorn, I don't think he's played. I didn't see the Toulouse team at the weekend, but he's still injured. And they're your two fullbacks. So I wouldn't be surprised. Freddie Stewart has a good final, and it's like a little tap on the shoulder. By the way, you're coming on the Lions tour as well, because like your first choice two fullbacks are out injured currently. So, and the first game is, by the way, a week on Friday night, isn't it? So ultimately, I mean, he was class. You look at the second row combo, and this is your genre, Jim. Ollie Chesham and Cam Henderson.
Yeah, ridiculous. Ollie Chesham for me has just got better and better and better. He's now at the stage of really fulfilling, if not fulfilled, his potential of what they hoped and thought he would do. You look at his output, like small things that you wouldn't necessarily pick up. Charge downs. So he's always on the nines boot, shooting out the line, like cutting off, and they highlighted it on the TV at the weekend, getting off the line, George Ford keeping him on the floor 2 or 3 seconds, them small things. And then you've got the headline moments, right? The line out steals and in and around the breakdown, the hard out carries. I chatted to my agent who looks after him. And again, because I like drawing comparisons to great All Blacks players, but I was like, there's a Brodie Retallick about him. About the way that he carries, about the way that he moves, about the way that he gets off the line. And when he came back from injury and he wasn't quite fit, you could see you could see he wasn't quite fit because he wasn't moving as well. And then within 2 or 3 or 4 weeks back in the England fray, and he can bang a man as well. He's quality, and he's probably central as well as the headliners like a Julian Montoya and a Andre Pollard. But for that, like you said, the old school set piece, the physicality, the grunt, the DNA, the look of what Leicester looked like. For me, he's probably captain. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I can see him being captain for Leicester for the foreseeable future now. Central to what they did against Sale as well, who, as we know, and we've spoken about them all week, the physicality, what they've got with the South African heartbeat in their team, and the way in which they've bullied teams. I've not seen Sale bullied like that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And they were on the back foot with the aerial contests and stuff like that. But that was a proper, and I can't remember the last time I've seen this, even though I know Leicester won the Prem. That was a Leicester of old.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that was quite sad, actually, because Cheika's leaving. He's a huge part of that. I think someone like a Andre Pollard, you could fill that void, right?
With who?
I'm not disrespecting a Andre Pollard World Cup winner.
Yeah.
But there are 10s out there that you could get, potentially.
Who's out of contract that could come in for next season?
James O'Connor, Owen Farrell. You know,
there we go. What do you know?
But I'm saying what Cheika's done to that team and the emotional level he got them up to at the weekend. We spoke about all the obligatories we've done last week. Mike Brown, Dan Cole, Ben Youngs. Kids came out against Newcastle. They were going to win the game. They played all right. They did enough. I'll tell you what as well, and I give him a little bit of shit and a bit of stick because he was my best man at my wedding. I try and humble him. What Brett Deacon's done at that club, right? And the amount of work that he puts in the back end, he's brought a lot of them players up.
Yeah.
Like he's come through with Freddie Stewart, with George Martin, with Ollie Chesham.
Tommy
He's
Raffel.
like a glue. Tommy Raffel. He's like a glue within that squad, and he coaches the forwards.
Yeah.
That's his domain.
Yeah.
And that's what he is doing. Cheika's the boss.
Yeah.
Deeks goes out there, delivers them, motivates them, goes about his business, and doesn't get any plaudits in the background. So, like, he stood the test of time, and I have to, and I feel a bit embarrassed, and he'll feel a bit embarrassed if he listens to it or the boys tell him. But that was as Leicester performance I've seen, and I'm going to say it, as far back as the boys, mate.
Yeah.
Jim Hamilton,
Who?
Martin Johnson, Ben Kay.
The boys.
Did it feel like that or not?
Yeah,
Forget me. It did feel like that, didn't it? It felt like you rewound the clock 20 years.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah. Well, no, it was. And it was, the atmosphere was pumping. And then not only that, but you've got the finishing ability of Adam Radwan. So you look at the result, 21-16. Look at Radwan's finish in the first half.
Rob shaking his head.
I said it about Bath. So Newcastle produce a shitload of players, a load of unbelievable players, and they have done year in, year out for donkey's years, right? But you look at Guy Pepper getting man of the match on Friday night for Bath, right? Then you go to Saturday, Adam Radwan, not many wingers score that try. The diving over, and we saw a couple of years ago for Quins, Tyrone Green do one. But Radwan, even to the point of Andre Pollard's gone up and apologised because he's literally leathered it as hard as he can and Radwan made it look easy, didn't he? You know, even the other,
Why is that?
Wheels.
There you go. Because people are like, oh, it's the skill of being able to dive. I was like, no, Radwan, man. The reason he scored that is because it's Radwan, man, and he is rapid.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only reason. There ain't many that, like you said, that are taking that.
Yeah, yeah. And do you know what? You look at it and his step, he gets the ball on the edge, doesn't he, for his first try, and everyone's just panicking. You've got 3 Sale defenders just corner flagging, trying to get across, and he just steps off his right, bang, scores a try. And when I talk about discipline, that's the sort of thing I mean. 3 players doing the same thing. Well, Alex Sanderson will be like, well, the third player, you've got to get up in the line and not corner flag. So it's just like the tiny little details. And as we know it in semi-finals, it's the small, minute details that make the biggest of differences in the tighter games. And Radwan, 2 tries, outstanding. Andre Pollard misses a few kicks, which kept Sale a little bit closer. Thought George Ford was off in the first half, a few knock-ons here or there. And a lot of that is the pressure that Leicester put him under. But then with the bench that Sale used, Gus Waugh came on at 9. I felt a bit sorry for Rafi Quirk because he was trying too much himself at times in a semi-final. But Gus Waugh came on and just controlled things nicely, got themselves back in with a shot, 21-16 towards the death. And then there's the big talking point, James, isn't there, around the great Freddie Stewart that we spoke about earlier. Where do you sit on this, the tackle at the end?
I'm clear in my mind. 100% clear.
Red card?
And absolutely fine.
Oh, fine. I thought you meant red card, yeah. No.
And I saw Sam Warburton, who I normally agree with everything Sam Warburton says. And I saw his comments after the game saying that he thought it was at least a penalty.
Yeah.
He's an expert in tackling, right? And I feel reluctant to go up against Sam Warburton, but I have to on this. I almost tweeted it or tweet shared it just to make my point, but I didn't. Freddie Stewart is in the position to tackle Luke Cowan-Dickie, low. If Luke Cowan-Dickie doesn't tuck his head like a human penknife, and that tackle, again, it's subjective, right? Then Freddie Stewart goes on to make a normal looking tackle. But you can't, I mean, you can, because he did. He basically folded in half at the hips. Freddie Stewart can't do anything. He can't wrap, he can't do anything because he's been hit before he can even attempt to wrap. That was my opinion on that. And that is as clear in my mind as it is that I'm an idiot. Like, it's as clear. Clear.
Part of me wishes it was the other way around, and we were talking about it, and it was a Sale defender that did it to a Leicester defender.
Because they wouldn't be biased.
Yeah, because everyone's accusing me. I put something out on Twitter or X, and everyone's like, "Oh, what team did you play for?" I'm like, no. You see Freddie Stewart, he's coming across, he's ducked down to make the tackle, and he's actually trying to wrap. You watch his arms come out, but because they just go, like, as you said, Luke Cowan-Dickie leads with his head, which weirdly in rugby union is outlawed at the amateur level, but professionals can do it. And it's ironic as well, and this is nothing against Luke Cowan-Dickie, but as I've said on here many times, Luke Cowan-Dickie tackles with his head and literally throws the arms in to look like he's rapping. So it's ironic that it was on him at the end, but take nothing away from it. It's a rugby incident. Freddie Stewart, and they go to the TMO and there's the drama. Imagine if you're Leicester and they give a penalty, Sale then get the penalty, kick it to the corner, drive the line out over, George Ford kicks conversion, you're out the semi-final. On that decision, it would be an absolute travesty in my opinion. So ultimately, the ref, Matt Carley, the TMO, they got it right. And I'm with you, Jim. When Danny Kerr's saying that on TNT Sports and he says, "Oh, we all agree. Him and Hugo, of course, they're always going to agree." But Sam Warburton, I'm like, and we always know Sam Warburton's one of the best analysts in the game when we've worked with him, when we watch him on TV. He's always spot on. I couldn't believe he was saying it. But yeah, the opinions, mate, they're like arseholes. Mine is veted, yours is hairy, so they're slightly different, but everyone's got one. And ours on this podcast, and yes, we might be accused of being biased because we both are ex-Leicester Tigers players for many years. Never a penalty, and the right decision was come about, and Leicester are in the final, lads.
Who do we reckon wins the final then? Bath, Leicester?
The big thing's around Finn, right? And I know Van Graham's come out and said that Finn is fine. He's just cramping up. His whole body was cramping up. They thought it was a dead leg. And I'm sure we know Finn. He'll be having 5 Guys burgers all week, a few ciders, a few some Scotch whiskies. He'll be fine. But if he goes down, it's advantage Leicester, which I don't want because ultimately you want Finn Russell to be playing in the final. It's hard to call. It
is hard to call. Is your head telling you Bath?
Yeah, my head's telling me Bath. But, I said it earlier, best team defensively in terms of points and tries conceded. Best team in attack in terms of points and tries scored. They've got a very strong bench. Leicester's bench made a bit of a difference, and I know they've got Coley and Ben Youngs. Emeka Ilioni came on and did really well, I thought, got a crucial turnover for Leicester. But then you sat there going, I just think the quality that Bath have got, unless something goes drastically wrong for them, they're favourites in this game. And I think some of the Leicester lads have said it, haven't they? So my head's saying Bath. My heart is obviously desperate for Leicester to win. And it's like the old school again, like the 90s. Leicester-Bath in a final at Twickenham. Neil Back pushing over Steve Lander. Let's not mention it. And Bath had the wood over them then, but I don't know. Something in this Leicester
It's closer
team,
than you think.
Yeah, it is very close. Oh, it makes really close. The emotional drivers as well with Leicester, with Youngsy's last game, Coley's last game, Checker leaving, Montoya leaving. That can work massively for you, and also it can be too much as well in the game, can't it?
But I think with Leicester, right, so take out the emotion, strip back our association with Leicester, right? If you look at the backbone of the team, Julio Montoya, all right, world-class hooker, okay, world-class. You got an international either side. So I'm just saying, because the Bath are the favourites, right? People are saying that. We spoke about Ollie Cheshup, world-class. You look at the quality that Leicester have got in the back row, some balls in there, some South African balls. Ollie Cracknell's been brilliant for them. Tommy Rafael, great at the breakdown. Liebenberg is an absolute warrior for them. You've got England 9, you've got a World Cup winning 10. And Andre Pollock has blown hot and cold for Leicester, he has. Yep. But on the biggest stage, and yes, he missed a few kicks at the weekend, on the biggest stage, he's never been flustered, ever. And this is what I mean. So you start, then you can look out to the wings who are on full. And I think bringing Adam Randwan in has been a stroke of genius. And we've spoken about how good he is. Like, if it wasn't, and I put it on the WhatsApp chat, didn't I, Rob? But we didn't put that onto the one that went out. I said if he left Newcastle years ago, he'd be an England international, because with that speed, there's a Louis BLB array around him, about him, in how he plays. We've mentioned Freddie Stewart. So I know Bath are favourites.
Parisi,
right?
We didn't even talk about Parisi's try, his first touch.
Oh, my try.
And Wales.
Oh, my word. Well, is he not starting because of his discipline, do you think?
No, he's been injured.
Worried?
He's been injured a lot this year.
Okay.
So he had the discipline, and then I think he got away with it, didn't he? There was a few bits.
Well, that's the
on.
worry with him, though, isn't it? Because he monsters people. And he's been getting yellow cards, and I think did he get a couple of red cards as well this season?
At the start of the year, I think.
Yeah, he definitely got one. But I'm looking at Leicester, and it is 50-50. I don't think it's 51-49. I think it is a 50-50 game. And, you know, on here, we have to make a call, right? And it's when we've done the Champions Cup finals, or we've done the World Cup quarters or semis where the teams are completely matched. I think Leicester look good. And I just got a feeling. I got a feeling.
There we go.
For Leicester. And it isn't, I promise you, and maybe it is. It's easy saying that. I promise you, I'm telling you, listen to me, swear my life, that it's not biased, but I'm picking Leicester.
There we go. I'm with you, Jim. I'm with you. My head's
No,
saying...
hang on.
No, my head's...
I
I hadn't finished. My head's saying Bath because of the stats and what they've produced. My heart is always going to say Leicester. And now the great Scotsman, Jim Hamilton, has just convinced me that stats and all that stuff mean nothing going into a final. Emotion, the drivers that come with that, the team you just talked through. I mean, you talk through the Bath team, it's pretty good as well. But I'm with you, Jim. I'm going Leicester. Leicester by 2. Come on, you Tigers!
I'm interested in your opinions on this, lads. The R360 League. What do we think? Is this going to change the game? Is it going to save rugby union? Or is it just another one of these flash in the pan things?
Andrew, you have to give context for the listeners who might not know.
Well, the context of it is global franchise rugby competition, dubbed as a Grand Prix style league, founded by former England centre Mike Tyndall, ex-Bath director of rugby Stuart Hooper, and an agent called Mark Spores. And there's some other industry insiders. So they've got some people involved from F1 and things like that. It's basically going to feature 8 teams from the men's side and 4 women's teams, and have a world tour around 16 global cities like London, New York, Barcelona, Sao Paulo, Los Angeles, Cape Town, making the games take place during spring and late summer. Every team plays a 14 to 16 match season spanning 2 windows, April to June and August to September. So don't worry about the Rugby Championship down in Australia, South Africa, New Zealand and Argentina. And so that's what they're proposing. First thing I'll say, we've talked about needing innovation and change in the game in certain things to help it grow and to help it be sustainable and bring more money into the game, more eyes into the game and all this stuff. I love Tins, get on well with him. And, you know, he might be brilliant in terms of bringing people together because of his contacts or whatever. And, you know, his thoughts on it. What I will say is 2 of the other main people, Stuart Hooper, his experience as a very young director of rugby at Bath, and I don't have any personal knowledge of him in that role, but what I do know, Mark Spores, who's the agent, is a clown, and I'm happy to say it on air.
Bit harsh. It was my agent. Nearly got me Adidas boots.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I don't see it working, the franchise model. Are you watering down the fans that are already in the game and hoping that, you know, you're going to get fans in? Who's watching in Sao Paulo? Who's watching? You know, you're doing the fans a disservice, I think. And what we need to do is stabilise the current state of the game and grow it from within before basically just dismantling the Premiership, the Champions Cup, the URC, Super Rugby, crossing over at times with international rugby. What we need is a global season. That's what we've said. And I don't think this is the way forward, but that's just my opinion. I think it's a bit of a pipe dream. And whilst it's a great... Where's the money? Who's putting the money in? Where the contract's coming from? Because lads are in contract. You've got to get ratification from World Rugby to, you know, allow the tournament to go ahead. the unions aren't going to be wanting to give up their players. You know, the England boys, look at what some of the England boys have said. I think Tommy Freeman said something along the lines of, it would have to be a ridiculous offer to get me to jeopardise my England career. And so, you know, while it's an idea that's been thrown out there, we've seen some of these ideas and they've gone nowhere. And they tried to, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion on it, Jim, especially with some of the background that you know. We've seen what's happened with the sevens in trying to go down this route. And I know sevens is different to the 15s, and you know they're talking about getting the top 300 players in the world. Sevens flopped, right? In terms of how it's run, how it's marketed, numbers in stadiums, and how much money was drained out of it. And I think this would go down the same route. But that's just my humble opinion.
Humble, I love that. So I've thought about this, and I haven't spoken about it much. So hopefully, my opinion comes across in the way that it's meant to come across, and it probably won't. So here goes. I think it's the right idea. When I say the right idea, I'm talking about innovation. I'm talking about a different perspective, and I'm talking about different people trying to take the game forward. You're right, we've seen it before with the 12s or whatever it was called, or the 5s, that kind of indoor thing. Never believed in any of them. But I do believe in a bit of glitz and glam and a bit of kind of rock and roll and a bit of different investment and a different perspective on it. And I have seen under the bonnet with some of the stuff and some of the proposals around it. And what I saw, I was really excited. But it's all right seeing something on a PDF or someone talking you through and walking you through that a potential TV partner could be Netflix and a sponsor could be Nike, or a Nike Air Jordan for the men, a Nike for the women. You're going to get the best players and you're going to go and play in LA. You're going to go and play in Dubai. You're going to go and play in Spain. So when I saw these things, there was a real excitement around what I thought was possible. The other positive thing is that there is people that are circling the game with investment that have got money. And I think what this does, whether or not it takes off or not, there's a part of me that hopes that it does take off, because I think we need to see something different. And you know my feelings on this, right, mate? And I've also been close to the top table. So I've seen under the bonnet at the highest level, we ain't in a good place. The game isn't in a good place. So it needs something, right? Some kind of innovation and some kind of disruption to move the game forward, because we're going to roll into next year. And what are we doing? We're doing exactly the same again. Leinster have got a very good team. They're bringing in Rico Ioane. Toulouse are going to be phenomenal. Bordeaux are going to be phenomenal. And maybe someone else. Okay? Right? The Prem, is there relegation next year?
Well, it depends on whoever.
There we go. Okay, so there we go.
Yeah.
We don't even know. Okay, the sustainability of the South African teams travelling up and down. I'll tell you one thing that I do know, and I do know this for certainty. You mentioned Tommy Freeman there, like it'd have to be a mega offer for him to not play for England. I'm telling you now, 80% of players want something like this to happen. They're overrun with the amount of games that they're playing. They don't feel valued in that. They feel like the marketing of the game is embarrassing at some points about the way that the game is marketed, and the amount of games that they have to play, the international window where there's an expectation for them to come back, the fact that some of them can't go and play in France and play for their country. Like there's loads of different things. I don't want to outline them now. So there's a real disconnection between the players, between the RFU, the SRU, the IRFU, whatever it is. Then there's a disconnection between them and World Rugby. Like you said, there's no globalisation of the season. So what these guys involved are trying to do, and I don't know their business credentials, right? I'm not a great businessman myself. But what they're doing is taking the leap to try something disruptive, to try something innovative. And one thing's for sure, there's money involved in this, and there's people that are interested that want to invest in it. At what level and what money?
Where's the money coming from? Where's the money coming from? The
money's coming from an American investment, from Dubai as well. And you know what? World Rugby were looking at investment. Other clubs are looking for an investment. The leagues are looking for an investment. URC were looking at Saudi money as well. But if you were to look under the bonnet of these businesses, you'd be like, well, I ain't investing in that. But if there's something fresh or there's something new, and say one of the teams, I don't know, let's call the Red Bull Flyers of New York, we can promise you that we're going to have Cheslin Colby and Peter Steph-Toy. We know the South Africans can go rogue, right? Okay, and you can build a team around that. The issue will be around the French teams. If you could promise that you've got the, I don't know, the Coors Light Wanderers, and you've got Anton Dupont and Louis Bielbarré. I don't think you'll get the French players. I think where the disconnection lies is...
So when you say something like that, I don't think you get the French players, and you're saying you're getting the top 300 players in the world, you ain't getting one of the best players in the world now.
Well, that's what I mean. So there's a few cracks, right?
Yeah.
I get that. So you're not getting the French players. You're getting the South African players. I reckon you're getting a lot of England players.
Not with the new contracts. I don't think you would.
Well, I think you will. I think a lot of these lads are playing 30 games a year. They're getting absolutely wellied.
No, I understand that. But then if you go to France, you're playing 45 games a year.
Yeah, but that's the only option. Because if this happens, right, and this takes off, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, the RFU are going to have to say, well, we're on board now. Okay, so you go and play in the franchise league. Let's have a look at the quality. And actually, you're only going to play 14 games a year. And then we'll have you for the rest of the time because they want to do it outside the international window. So if you were to take out the emotion, right, of everything, of it, I watched the Leicester Sale game and then I watched the Bath Bristol game. And there's a traditionalist in me, right? I love that. Like these teams are going to go to Sao Paulo and there'll be casual fans, right? Like the Formula One, like a lot of the Formula One fans and UFC fans or whatever, there's a tribalism.
Mate, you're going to Sao Paulo, there'll be 100 people in the stadium. How's that looking?
That's my point. My point is, I know, right, through great sources that the players aren't happy with what's going on at the minute. They're not. And ultimately, they hold the power. So there's contracts that have been signed. There's interest around it. And if what I've seen is legit, Netflix, Nike Air Jordan, multi-million/billionaire investors, our game needs something. Like come on, you must be on the same page that our game needs something.
No, it does need some innovation, but I don't think this is it.
So with this here, and look, mate, we've gone round the houses on here. So you said there needs to be change, right? There needs to be innovation. There's all of these things. Henry Pollock did a thing on TNT. Benny Kay cut him off that after one answer about what he thought was a young man coming through, but he was talking about the marketing, the need to change, all these different things. In the current guise, it's not happening. Mate, there's shoots, right? There's green shoots now of stuff moving or whatever. I'm telling you right now, okay, there is no collaboration, okay? If there's a global season, it's 2 or 3 years. These things take ages to go through. So even if this doesn't take off right, what it does do is makes the powers that be, whoever they are, I'm telling you now, mate, you know it, right? We've had a beer over it and a few cigarettes when we're speaking about it. Shit ain't getting done.
Yeah, no, I know. No, I know it's not.
So but something needs to happen.
Yeah, there needs to be a kick to change. And we talked about the global season going back to when Augustin Pichot was going to be chairman of, he was going up against Bill, wasn't he, over COVID. And, it was too early then to see the radicalisation and the ideas that Augustin Pichot was going to come in and change the game with, right? And maybe COVID hit and that was a bit of an issue around it. But there needs to be a shake-up, don't get me wrong. But to alienate all the club fans around the world, and I'm not just talking Premiership, I'm talking, and you said it yourself, look at France. In some of those French towns, it is all there is. It is what they live and breathe, right? So you tell all the French clubs, you tell all the English clubs, the Irish clubs, the South African clubs. South Africans will, go anywhere and do anything. And I mean that in the right way of they've opened the gates to the boys going and playing elsewhere because they've got the success at national level. I don't see how you get this buy-in. There needs to be a shake-up and there needs to be alignment with a global season and less matches and more jeopardy on games. But I don't see alienating every fan and every club fan across the world and just hope that they're going to go and support these franchises that no one's ever heard of and there's no kind of relationship with, except for you might like some of their players. I don't think that's a starter at all.
The fact that we're even talking about it, imagine if it did happen. Imagine if rugby was on Netflix. Imagine if Peter Stefano and Cheslin Colby.
Rugby has been on Netflix, but it was shocking. It was shit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Imagine if there's a draft system. Imagine if we know what players are getting played and we get access to that. Imagine it's done like these American docos, right? Where there's real insight and it's done properly. Rugby's not done properly. It's just not. I don't want to be negative on it. Okay. But imagine if it is. Okay. And that's what I'm looking at with this, because if it happens, we've got something to talk about. Everyone's talking about it. You can't not. Okay, whether or not it takes off or not, whether or not the financial thing, whether or not the fans come, the fans do this, the fans do that, the fandom will follow if something's good, right? So we're guessing that they won't, and we're thinking that they won't because rugby's a traditional sport. All I'm thinking at with this is I'm going in it or listening to it. I'm not going in anywhere. I'm thinking about it with an open mind. What if?
Right, lads, we'll leave that one there then. So over to the URC semis. Shall we start in Dublin?
Yeah, you sound pumped about it. About as pumped as the Leinster fans. Rob.
You know why? It's because I was really looking forward to this game, and I thought Glasgow were really going to push them, and there was going to be big emotional drivers behind it. But yeah, just Leinster kind of walked away with it, didn't they? Really?
Yeah. It's their bogey team, like Glasgow, and Leinster were pumped, and they were fired up in the first half, and scoreline flattered Glasgow. A couple of tries at the end of the game. First half, Leinster blew them away. Set piece, scrum, line out. Physical at the line, offloading out of the tackles.
Kick battle.
Yeah, all of them things. But I think you watch Leinster where they were at the beginning of the season or middle part of the season when they were at their very best, when they were at the line, offloading out of the tackle. Not just that, Glasgow were poor defensively, like some really simple moves from Leinster to score, like Dan Sheehan, fourth man out. I think it was Jamie Osborne as well, scored a try where he was like the fourth runner out. Glasgow's defence looking in. And that's because they were just getting pumped at the line, and they clearly had a game plan of, like you would against Leinster, double hits on players, double hits on the forwards. And there was just some kind of, I don't want to say, I have to, like a few schoolboy errors around defence.
Yeah. Okay,
like you've not seen Glasgow, who are the current URC champions, make them mistakes, but they were made to make them mistakes because they were on the back foot. They were being blitzed around scrum, line out, the aerial battle, like you just said. And Leinster for that first half were back at the level that they were when they were on this roll in the quarters of the Champions Cup.
Yeah,
and before that, and the round of 16.
Yeah, I think emotionally they've got nearly back to where the expectation is of a Leinster team, with littered with the talent they've got. And yeah, they are missing a few still, but you know, we said about it last week, they're redoubling their efforts to win the URC because, you know, there was no expectation that they get to a Champions Cup final and have a good go at that, really. So, I don't know. I think in reality, like Glasgow, and I hate saying this, and it's not just down to this reason, but their performance was summed up by what's been their best player or one of their best players all year in George Horn. Made a load of little errors, unforced errors, which just cost the team. That was symptomatic of the Glasgow game, really, with the errors that they made. And yes, you know, Sione Tuipulotu makes, you know, a wicked break at the end to score a try. But again, I said it about the other semi-finals, the discipline of, you know, playing in the right areas, not making errors. And Glasgow compounded a few of their errors as well. Leinster were on it. Osborne, I thought, was outstanding. You know, Jameson Gibson Park had made a couple of errors, but his passing game at the breakdown, the vision to see those, you know, fizz the ball across 3 or 4 attackers to get to that fourth guy or fifth guy to score the tries, and just the control they showed. It was dominant. And Ryan Baird gets man of the match. You know, he's not a guy that has really been first choice, has he? When you're talking about, yeah, the Leinster team in the big Champions Cup games, and I know he's been involved and started a few here or there, but you wouldn't consider him a first choice starter. I thought he was outstanding throughout the game. James Lowe, and people have questioned James Lowe recently. You talked about the aerial battle, Jim. I thought James Lowe was off the charts good at times, and you said something about another semi-final, just the crumbs around the kick game, the aerial battle. Leinster won that. And won it hands down, and that just gave them entries. It gave them possession, and then physically, when you're dominating collisions as they did, and your set piece was working really well, you know, the line out drive was effective again from Leinster, wasn't it? You just tick in all the boxes to win a semi-final, and it was a comfy victory. You know, even at half time, they could have been way more ahead. Prendergast missed a fair few kicks at goal. Didn't want to make a tackle either, by the way, but that's me saying that, poor bloke. But you know, it was dominant from Leinster from the first minute all the way through. And Glasgow will be massively disappointed. There's a load of players leaving at the end of the season, but the champion team did well to win it last year. And when you are the champion team, you saw what it meant to Leinster to stick one over Glasgow because they were champions. And McCarthy said it as well, didn't he? Everyone loves to hate Leinster, but we're here, we're in a final at Croke Park, and they've earned the right to do it throughout the season in the way the seeding system works, and dominant in another semi-final against Glasgow.
I like that from McCarthy, by the way. You don't often see Leinster lads come out and actually, say things like that, is it?
You don't see Leinster lads in the press, do you? Because they're not allowed to. James?
Well, that's true, yeah. But I think they are feeling it, and that's a player who, let's be honest, is feeling the pressure within his team now because of what's happened in the Champions Cup.
Yeah.
Like that's the simple facts of this. And we've been in teams before, mate, when we were at Leicester Goodey, when I was at Saracens for different reasons. We know what it's like for the South African lads, for the All Blacks. When you're in championship winning teams, people don't like you. There's always an undercurrent of they're doing this, they're doing that. It's success. You saw it when Man United back in the day had their heyday. Man City when they're washing money allegedly, doing it their way. But that's what it is. It's jealousy, it's envy, and you want teams that are dominant. And Leinster have been, especially in, and this isn't meant to be a take the piss statement, especially in games throughout the year. We can talk about the knockout games and stuff like that where they're putting 50 points on teams. So naturally, fans, casual fans, people in the media want to see them get shot down. I remember when Munster were wicked back in the day, everyone hated Munster. And that's what it is. And that's it's a respect thing. That's what I think it is. I think it's a respect and a jealousy. It's sport.
Yeah.
Exactly that. But actually, you're right. I love seeing a young man in Joe McCarthy come out and say that, because it doesn't need to show that it cares, but you want to start building that, because a lot of people are looking to Ireland now, not us, okay, a lot of fans, a lot of South Africans, a lot of All Blacks, a lot of English, a lot of Scottish, where they don't like Ireland, like they don't, for whatever reason, by the way they conduct themselves on the pitch, the fact that they're successful, whatever it is, if it's arrogance or confidence or whatever. That's the facts of it. Scotland, Ireland got a massive rivalry. Okay, South Africa, Ireland, massive rivalry. All Blacks, Ireland, massive rivalry. This is just recent history, right? And the Leinster make up the backbone of the Ireland team, and that's what it is. So I love Leinster. I you know what? I love Leo Cullen as well. You know I do. That's what it is. But they've got everything that they need, and they should. They've got no excuses. And I find it hilarious, right? How you've got some of these warriors, and Joe McCarthy's one of them. He's a 6'6", 6'7" bull of a man with a mullet who can goo and he can bang. That he would have to sit there, how the media people would want them and say, yeah, I can't do an Irish accent. We just want to get better week on week. We just want to put our best self out there at the weekend and show our fans. No. Tell us what you really think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
Love
you
it.
want to go out there and you want to F someone up, right? And that playing for this team is everything. And you don't give what anyone thinks.
Yeah.
And, that was a kind of a snapshot of what he thinks. We know some of the lads, right? It's some of the greatest characters walking the planet just want to get better next week and just, just put our best foot forward. Come on.
We want to train hard.
So it's happening. The wheels are now starting to move in the direction of actually a bit of authenticity here.
Yeah.
Well, that's what rugby needs. It doesn't need a global franchise league and playing in New York and New Delhi. That's what it needs. It needs lads to be able to come out and speak. Honestly,
There you go, Rob.
Get stuck in,
we
Rob.
need Genji calling Bath posh and he wants to smash them up, and we need Joe McCarthy saying everyone hates us and we don't care. That's what we need to see. It's a simple fix. It's not billions playing the game in far off corners in Las Vegas and what have you.
Rob, just because you won't travel, you get Delhi belly. Rob gets Delhi belly. Who wants to forget New Delhi? Imagine a game in Vegas, Rob.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, mate?
Hardly anyone would
Come
be
on.
there watching it, but it'd be a great crack.
We will be. Hopefully, we're not now. Actually, you're not invited, Andrew. After your comments.
Well, I'm just honest, aren't I?
And then did you watch the game on Saturday night in Pretoria?
Yeah, underwhelmed by the Sharks.
How gutted?
Sorry.
Jim, how gutted were you?
No, not good. But actually, looking at the Bulls' history in the URC, they've beaten Leinster in the semi-final
Yes.
already. They've been in how many finals?
This will be their third. They've been in 2.
So they've been in 2 finals. This will be their third.
Third time lucky, maybe.
But this is they're a team in knockouts, right? That have been there or thereabouts. And I've got to say it. What's going to be the difficulty for them this week?
Travel.
Of course. Okay. So I know you've asked me about the game, and we'll get onto it. But if you were to fast forward now, like the Bulls are good, mate. Physical, like everything that you think about a South African team, they are the epitome of a South African, the national team in how they play, with the physicality and the kind of direct approach that they've got, the gnarliness around it, the discipline as well isn't great. Not saying that South Africa's discipline is not great, by the way.
You are, James.
Mate, they were good. They were good at the weekend. Scoreline, I thought, flattered the Sharks. I thought the Sharks were poor, to be honest with you. In attack, they looked udderless.
Udderless?
Yeah.
They had no others.
They had no others. Disappointed with how the Sharks played, and the Bulls looked comfortable throughout the whole game. Like, that's what it looked like. I thought the scoreline flattered the Hollywood Bet Sharks.
Tell me now, you've got a front row of Oxenche, Bongi and Banambi, and Vinnie Cock. I know you've got 2 lighter kind of second rows behind them, missing Etzebeth and whatever, but oh, my scrum from the Bulls got absolutely chewed up and spat out in that especially in that first half.
The first one.
Oh my gosh. Like that summed up the game really, didn't it? You know, you've got 3 world-class front rowers for the Sharks. Yeah, arguably near enough South Africa's first choice front row, getting absolutely annihilated. I know people will come at me and go, Frans Malherbe, Thomas du Toit, they're the best tight heads in the world from South African perspective, but
well, Wilco Lowe plays for the Bulls, as we know.
He chewed up.
It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, he chewed up Oxenche, didn't he? But the physicality of him, we said it last week, you know, and someone was like, hate is too strong a word for the Bulls and the Sharks, because I said they hate each other. But there was a lot of emotion coming out of that Bulls performance in the physicality. You see Cobus Visa just throwing boys around.
What about his line break as well?
Yeah. And that was the difference, wasn't it, in the end? That was the game-winning... Because the Sharks, although they were comfortably the second best team on the pitch, at 18-13 were still kind of hanging on in there. And, you know, that break from Cobus Visa. But ironically, sport is cruel, isn't it? It's great and it's cruel. And a week in sport is a long time or a short time, whichever way you want to look at it. Jaden Hendrickson last week wins the kicking comp, gives the wink. I know he didn't get the kick to win it, but part of the winning team for the Sharks with the kicking comp, all the controversy around him. And then the next week he slips over on his box kick that leads to a try from a crossfield kick. Caden Moody scores in the corner and everyone's like, karma comes to get you. I kind of felt sorry for him a little bit with the slip, and everyone's now blowing up to be a big thing. But as we said, we need narratives. We need these things. And I felt a little bit for Caden Moody. He slipped about 3 times. He's got the physio coming on cleaning his boots for him. Change your boots, lad.
Altitude. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Of course. But I did mention the Bulls' discipline. That was the thing. Like this weekend, they got 3 yellow cards. They got 2 last week as well. And the obvious thing to say, right, is if you play Leinster like that, you are struggling. But against Leinster, I don't know what the stats are. Is Isaac still working for us, Rob, or not?
Yeah, he's coming back in the summer.
Yeah, we're bringing him back on.
Cheap, get him on the cheap.
Get him on the cheap. Isaac, mate, I don't know what stats you've got on Leinster's strike rate against teams with yellow cards, but I imagine it's pretty decent. So that's going to be a big factor for them. And when you play the way in which they do, like Cameron Honeycomb's dump tackle, if you want to call that, on Sia Khaleesi was a harsh yellow. Your mate, Andrew Brace, giving him a yellow, straight yellow for that.
Yeah, but it's above, above the horizontal. Yeah, it's above the horizontal.
Mate, it was a latch. Anyway, I don't
it lands on his head.
Mate. I don't want to get into it.
I'll defend Bracey. I mean, I don't
want to get into it.
I sent Bracey a video from the kickoff, the first kickoff.
Of course you did.
Well, this is the thing. So I'm watching the game, right? And from the first,
he's texting you during the game, isn't he?
No, from the first he hasn't texted me back because I think he's pissed off with me. But from the first kickoff, the Bulls break up straight from the touchline, don't they? And Bracey's about 25 yards behind play. So I've sent him the video going, Bracey, it's the opening kickoff, and you're sucking in big ones being left behind already. So, I thought Bracey had a good game. I thought he was strong, and I'm a bit biased because he's my mate. But and we're actually with him next Friday, James, over in Terranure, aren't we? But yeah, I mean, listen, discipline is going to be a big issue, as you said, Jim, for the Bulls in the final. But they just had too much physically. Kane and Moody was on fire. Villy LaRue just doing bits.
He has been unbelievable since he. I feel harsh because I
used to call him. What do you used to call him, James?
I just called him Willy LaRue.
No, you didn't, James. Be honest on this podcast, because we can go back and find them. They're still out in the ether.
Rob won't go back that far, mate. He's work shy when it comes to going back to nostalgia or history. So yeah, Willy LaRue, he's been on fire.
Yeah, he has
for them as well. So I just can't see Leinster losing.
Yeah,
I just can't.
I mean, you can't, but also the fact that it's the Bulls and how physical they are. Look at the scrum. Like, they could annihilate Leinster's scrum, and that's no disrespect to Leinster, but just how good that Bull scrum is. Wilco Lowe was on fire. There's no Tyg Furlong. Whether he's going to be fit, I don't think he will. Yes, I know you've got Porter.
Obviously, Doris.
Yeah, you've got Porter and Dan Sheehan, but when you look at the physicality, and this is the thing, when a team goes toe-to-toe with Leinster physically, Leinster struggle. Not necessarily struggle and I'm not saying they get pumped or anything, but they struggle to have their dominance, and then, they go and have to search for other ways to win, which hasn't always been successful. And Bulls have had success against them, obviously beating them in the semi-final. I think it was at the RDS a few years ago. But when you look at Marcel Coetzee, how big's he? I know he gets sin-binned as well, but he played at Ulster, so he's going to have the bit between his teeth. Hooson, I think at 10 has played really well. You mentioned Willy LaRue, Kane and Moody back on form, looking good. Centres are strong, aren't they? This is a big physical team that will test Leinster. I am with you that I think Leinster will have too much, and ultimately playing at home, you hope the fans turn up. Come on, Leinster fans, make the tickets €15 and you'll fill the place out. Make them €150 and you're getting 6,000 there like there was at the weekend. So you want that atmosphere, don't you? Because the atmosphere and the fans at Pretoria, at Loftus at the weekend, how good was the atmosphere? It was rampacked for the URC semi-finals, and you compare that to the Aviva Stadium, Leinster against Glasgow, and it was like day and night, wasn't it? Completely different. So I know that a lot of those Bulls fans won't travel because of how ridiculous it is, but
well, Jake almost signed them off anyway, didn't he? He was like, "Thanks for the season and supporting us." He didn't bother asking them. He was like, because they're the heartbeat of South Africa. In Pretoria. But I'm not saying that they've got loads and loads of money, but for the rand for the pound to come and watch a game of rugby when they can watch it on TV, having a braai in the sun.
Yeah.
I know what I'd be doing if I was there.
Yeah. But they've got a chance, don't get me wrong. And there is still this question mark over Leinster's head about getting over the line, winning a major trophy. And it will happen. I think it will happen this Saturday. But that's what the South African boys will be feeding off. Their physicality, the fact that they've beaten them before. The scrum dominance, kicking game is going to be huge if they've got fresh legs. But I do think Leinster will have too much for them, and Leinster will probably win by 10 points, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that Cameron Hanekom, he went off injured. I doubt he's going to be playing.
No, he's not.
No. Leinster as well, by a bit of a distance.
More than 10, James.
I'll go conservative with 9.
Right, lads, should we finish things off with the good, the bad and the ugly?
Yeah, let's. Fair few bits of good to get through this weekend. We'll start off with Bath and Leicester Tigers, both winning their home semi-finals to make a reenaction of the old rivalry from the old school 90s. They used to be the two most successful clubs. It used to be the big rivalry, and obviously other teams have come in now in the Prem over however many years, but great to see that old rivalry renewed at Twickenham this weekend. So big shout out to those two teams. Over in the URC, we've spoken about them both. Leinster and the Bulls, they get a shout out for winning their semi-finals. Bulls are now in their third final in 4 years. They've lost 2, so they haven't got over the line yet, but could this be their year? Third time lucky. Over to Super Rugby. The Blues beat the Chiefs in the quarter-final-ish, kind of quarter-finals. It's called something very different. It's actually called the qualifying final, because you can lose it and still get through, but I'll come to that in a minute. But anyway, the Blues get a shout out. They beat the Chiefs, and Bowden Barrett kicked a conversion on the 83rd minute to get them through to the semi-finals. But the Good this week, it's going to go weird, Jim. It's going to go weird because you can't just give it to a team that's won a semi-final. You know, you need something bigger than that. And I'm going to France. I'm going to France, James.
I know where you're going.
I'm going to Pro D2 in France.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to do it. The old Montauban or whatever they're called.
Montauban, and this is a great story. Montauban are going to win the Good this week. They won the Pro D2 final against Grenoble, who were massive favourites to win it. But they've been promoted back to the top 14 for the first time since, anyone know?
I nearly went to Montauban.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go as far back as 2011.
Very close, James. They got relegated in 2010. So massive shout out to Montauban. First time they're back in the top 14 after coming from the big outsiders. They beat Brive away in the semi-final, and then they beat Grenoble in the final. So massive shout out to Montauban. They're promoted back to the top 14 after winning the Pro D2, and that's why Montauban win the Good this week. The bad, few bits of bad. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to get some hate from Ireland, and we're in Dublin, and we're in Cork, and we're in all sorts of places over the next few weeks.
Just be careful, because I land into Dublin, and I'm hoping to then go from Dublin to Shannon.
Yeah.
So how bad is it?
Well, it's just the numbers again at a semi-final. Look at the Premiership semi-final, sold out pretty much at Leicester and Bath. But in Dublin, I think they said 12, but there's about 4,000 there, was there, James?
No, I think they were right with 12.
Hopefully, basically, it's a kick up the arse for everyone in Dublin to go and buy a ticket, get to Croke Park, and hopefully for Leinster fans to see them win a trophy for the first time in a fair few years this Saturday. Fill out Croke Park. So if I call you out, maybe you'll go, we don't want that again. So we're going to go and buy tickets for the URC final. What else was bad? Super Rugby Pacific. Get a shout out in the bad this week. Tournament organisers. Talking about organisation, Jim, here's one for you. The Chiefs. They lost, and they're not getting a mention in the bad themselves, but they are. The Chiefs lost their qualifying final game to the Blues, right? But even though they lost, they still go through to the semi-finals because their seeding, they finished top of the log. So they were the highest seeded team to lose one of the 3 qualifying finals. But not only that, even though they lost their qualifying final to the Blues, they still get a home semi-final.
Of course.
So they're playing the Brumbies at home, and the Brumbies won their home quarterfinal / qualifying final, whatever it is. Basically, I said it earlier in the season, how can you lose a knockout game and still qualify and get a home semi? Makes no sense.
That's
Ruggers.
Yeah.
Anyway, that gets mentioned in the bad, but the bad this week goes to La Rochelle, who lost away at Po to finish 7th and miss out on the barrage in the top 14. Ron O'Gara, he's blamed himself. Fair play. He's like, I've gone missing. I've got banned. It's the first time they've not made the playoffs for quite some time. So La Rochelle got humperdinked away from home at Pau. Who loses to Pau? Well, La Rochelle do, and you don't make the playoffs and the barrage. That's why La Rochelle and Rog, you win the bad this week. But the ugly, there wasn't loads of ugly this weekend, Jim. Couldn't find much, but you're going to disagree with it because we've already disagreed with it. The only thing I could find was Cameron Hennecombe's tip tackle on Sears Khaleesi. No one does that to your Sear, Jim. Absolutely no one. And it was a yellow card. Bracey got it right. There was no red cards this weekend. There were no bad shots. There were no dog shots. Basically, that's all I could find. So Cameron Hennecombe, you win the ugly for tipping Jim Sear. Don't touch Sear.
Well, lads, a couple of shout-outs to finish.
Got a massive shout out to East London RFC second team. The Wyverns. Oh, the Wyverns. Yeah, never heard of them, but I have now. And they've had the treble winning season under inspirational skipper Tom the Mohawk Mohan. I'll put the Mohawk in there.
Also need to give a massive shout out to long-time listener Steve Pallant, who after 35 years of service at Prime Tools will be putting his feet up and enjoying retirement. Fair play, Steve. We'll have to think of a hobby for him, though, to do, James. Horticulture, golf, buy a caravan, become obsessed with genealogy. Anyway, all the best to Phil and the team at Prime Tools. Good luck in retirement.
Here we go. An international shout out here. Hello. To Rugby Donner. How do you say that? Rugby
Dunno.
Donau, I love that, Rob, cultured. Hello to Rugby Donau from Austria. 3 years ago, they entered the Czech second division to push themselves with the goal of earning promotion. I'm going into this German accent now, no, from Austrian to German. Anyway, their goal of earning promotion to the top division this year. They did it beating Rugby Pro, winning promotion to the Czech extravagant to top it off. Their second team also won the Austrian Championship the week before. So a massive shout out to Clive, their tight head prop, and the rest of the lads from Donau.
Oh, you've done Donau a disservice there. Austrians, and you know Austrians are very close to Germans.
How the hell am I meant to read Austrian names and stuff like that? I mean, it takes research and time. We just get the shout outs a minute before we record, Rob.
There we go. Well, I'm saying his name's Claffy, their tight head prop.
Yeah,
and I'm saying
Claffy.
that one of my best mates is Austrian, Dan Bachmann, the goalie for Watford. So
hang on, he's Austrian. What's his name?
Dan Bachmann. But I just call him German. I just call him German anyway, Jim. So your German accent would work in Austria too. And finally, a massive shout out to the Cayman National 15 who play Bermuda this weekend in their last international of the season. Peter Stringer's brother, he's captain. Old Strings' brother.
Saw him when we were out there. Looks in decent shape.
Yeah, he looks a spitting image of Strings as well. So massive shout out to the Cayman National 15. We had a great time there, Jim. We want to go back, and I hope you smash Bermuda.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks very much, everyone. Big thanks to everyone. And you know the drill by now. If you haven't, and there's a few of you that still haven't, you need to subscribe, which means when the podcast comes out, you get a notification and you don't miss it. And there's no excuses then, is there? So if you haven't done, please subscribe on all the channels, YouTube, all the other podcast platforms. But the main one, Andrew, where are we? What's the main one?
The main one, as we know, James, is Spotify.
Yes, sir. Rugby Spot.
Spotify, pod.